Welcome to episode 15 of the Not Another Fitness podcast. I'm Andy, and this is
Amy.
Well done, you. First question right. Go to
Yay!
the top of the
Cha-ching!
class. Taking the surnames out this week, gone slightly more informal.
Yeah.
It'll be nicknames next week.
I was going to say, how do I introduce myself? Like Amy, Rambo, Ramos?
Rambo, I think, for me.
Rambo. Yeah, it's different how different like groups of people gravitate towards a different nickname, isn't it?
Keep regressing it until your mum intervenes again, and then we'll go right back to middle names.
Okay, brilliant.
Very formal.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So, Rambo, what you been up to since we spoke last?
Oh, you ask me this every time, and every time I feel on the spot.
Sorry.
No, not a lot actually. Been a bit of a quiet week. Had a few drinks last weekend, which was heavenly. So really enjoyed that. Went to a pub for a roast dinner with Jack, which was lovely to be outside. I think we might have spoke about this already. I'm just ringing a vague bell. Obviously, since what I've been up to since we last spoke is I've had a mild stroke.
Oh God, that is classic. The thing is, we were talking about this beforehand, like time and the concept of time and weeks and months, and it's easy to get lost. I think we probably did speak about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because when did we record? Monday?
Oh yeah, that's why. Because we recorded on Monday and it's now Friday.
Right, let's start again. So, Rambo, what have you been up to since Monday? And go.
Not a lot, mate. Just been working.
Pretty quiet.
Very quiet. Just been working. Went for a lovely burger last night at Peach, which is where we went for brunch when we met up in person.
Very good.
Went last night for a burger. Can highly recommend in the evening for a burger and cocktails. Very, very good. Lovely local business. Definitely head there. And that's it, really. Nothing to report. What about yourself?
Yeah, this is going to be a quick intro. Yes, I haven't done that much either. I mean, it's pretty much standard Zoom calls, consultations, bit of online training, some group work, which has now become the standard week over the last few months. But we're creeping towards the gym opening. So what are we now? 17th today. So
a week tomorrow. So I'm going to coach the last outside classes on the Thursday and the Friday, and then we open on the Saturday officially. So that's exciting.
Can't wait. So actually a couple of people I spoke to this week, clients that haven't really trained that much, or at least I haven't seen for like 3-4 months. We're meeting up next week for a little bit of a kind of planning session over a coffee, and that'll be really nice. I'm looking forward to seeing clients I haven't seen for a long time. So actually, next week's where I think it'll be like peak excitement, just seeing some new faces, and then being a few days out. It was we're getting there.
Nice.
So on today's show, we've got, I would class this one as a mixed bag.
Very much a mixed bag, just to keep things interesting for all our avid listeners out there.
There's no rhyme or reason to this one. Yeah, we got a strong 50, surely. A strong 50 listenership now.
Well, apparently, according to Anchor, average listeners are 50. So thank you to all you 50 out there. One of them's Mama. Thanks, Mama Ramshead.
Yeah, it's relatives, relatives and close friends. Hang in there, guys.
Yeah, keep going.
It is a bit of a mixed bag. So we've got, do these all come from, so that's a question from a listener. Yeah, these are all kind of related to either questions that we've had and kind of mixed in with a couple of things that we wanted to talk about anyway, which is like the perfect scenario for us. Because if we can help people on an individual level, that's great. But then also if the topics are slightly broader and hopefully more people get some value from it, then that is the sweet spot.
Even better.
So with that being said, the first one, and this one came from Josh, who we met in Stortford after a few...
would we say met, or would we say he drunkenly accosted us?
Drunkenly accosted, met. It was a friendly drunken accosting though, which I quite enjoyed. And he had a lot of nice things to say about the podcast as well. So
Did.
that was
So
good.
greatly appreciated. Thank you, Josh.
It would have gone another way. It would have come over and been like, your podcast, shit. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. That'd have been a downer. But luckily, he'd had a few pints by then. He was very positive indeed. So yeah, cheers, Josh. Appreciate it. So the first couple of questions. The first one was related to that old favorite, calories, and how to kind of calculate your calorie intake. And there's obviously several different ways of doing this, but Josh was asking specifically how accurate or how good is the body weight in pounds times, for example, 10, 12, 14. So you just like pick a multiplier basically between 10 and 16 generally, depending on activity and stuff like that. Take your body weight in pounds, and then that should give you, like an estimated calories, I suppose. So if you took multiplying by 10 being like the low end, that's what I'd consider to be, definitely dieting or like a weight loss range. So if you took like a 10 stone individual, 140 pounds, multiply their weight by 10, 1,400. So that'd be their calories, their calorie target. So that's the basic premise of it. The lower you go, obviously, like in theory, the quicker the weight comes off. But it's quite a broad strokes approach, right? So it's not, it might not be as accurate as, say, like tracking on FitnessPal and kind of doing it yourself. But I'll throw it over to Amy. Like, generally speaking, like, do you like this approach, or would you consider using it with clients, that kind of thing?
Not personally. I like something a little bit more specific, mainly because, not because necessarily clients need it, mainly just because I'm that type of person that I like the more specific approach. Personally, that I think that's kind of a bit more of a validation thing for myself as a coach. So I always use the good old Harris Benedict equation.
Nice.
Pretty much, if I have to do it manually, to be honest, I just 9 times out of 10 go on a calculator online, with regards to factoring in someone's weight, height, age, activity level, and what the goal is. The calculators that are online are just as good. And I think what you've got to remember when you're calculating your calories, particularly for the first time, if this is the first time you've ever done it, that's just a starting point. The first couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, they're probably going to be a little bit of a guessing game. Like, you're going to have to track for a bit. You're going to monitor, you're going to weigh yourself, you're going to see what's happening on the scales. You're also going to see visually how that amount of food looks, fitting it into your day and what you feel like. And then you're going to adjust from there. I think we had this conversation the other day, didn't we, mate? Where we were walking down the street, where we were like, you pretty much put any female on 1,500 calories and she's probably going to lose a little bit of body fat.
Yes.
I'm not saying that should be a starting point for every single female at all. However, like, that's just to show how kind of it doesn't need to be so scientific. So these general calculators, they're designed to make things simple as they can for people. And if that works for you, again, even with most nutrition coaches, whatever your approach you use, especially with a brand new client, there's always going to be a certain amount of trial and error.
Correct. It's a start point. So I would say I do use it as a ballpark with clients. Like for myself, I barely ever set myself like a strict number. To be honest, I just kind of know to eat less and be honest with what I'm putting in. Like that's it. And I fit quite nicely in that. Yeah, we spoke about like the 1,500 calories for women, 2,000 calories for men. Get a meeting around that, and they're probably going to lose at a decent rate, especially if they're active. So for me, it's exactly that. If I eat around 2,000 and I train not excessively normally, I'm going to lose at a pretty decent rate. There isn't. I think people get too hung up on it and too hung up on being exact and thinking that there's magic behind the numbers. So whether you have a coach or whether you're doing it yourself, it's always best guesswork. The number always changes unless you're having an identical week on week on week, which no one does. And hopefully you're getting smaller or bigger if you're trying to lose or gain weight. So that'll alter the equation as well. So yeah, the most important thing is to get started.
Yeah.
Like, don't overthink this to the point of, oh, I can't start because I've got to wait for my set of calories and macros. Just get going, and then you can have a look over the first kind of 1-2 weeks and see what's going on. But yeah, it's not superior, but it's not inferior either. It's just a way of doing it. If you want accuracy, then weigh yourself for 2 weeks, track calories for 2 weeks, and look at the fluctuation on the scales. And then you can be a little bit more precise with it. So when people do that, if people make the effort to do that with me, I can then give them a lot more and more accurate starting point, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Like, if someone does that before working with me and I have access to those numbers, then I can predict their calories to a tighter range for the people that need it, which are in the vast minority.
Yeah, massively. Like, to be honest, I don't really a lot with most of my clients, unless they have a really good understanding of nutrition anyway, or they're fueling for performance. I don't really start with calorie requirements anyway. I'll start with food diary. I'll start with portion sizes. I'll start with making sure they get enough fruit and veg in, and most of their food is coming from whole food sources as opposed to pre-packaged or, just like our foods that don't contain as many micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. So yeah,
the basics. Know the basics, and then you can kind of worry about calories off the back of that.
Yeah, and sleep, just to get that in for podcast bingo.
Ding. We've gone early with a few there. Nailing basics, sleep, calories. Yeah, good. Yeah. Check.
Did we say protein?
No, yeah, protein. That's good. Yeah. Individual differences.
What's the goal?
Ask yourself why. We laugh and we joke about it, but they're all absolutely true and should be considered. But yeah, we won't hammer that too much further. I think that's enough on that. And that's just because that's all there is to be said in terms of, is it a good, because Josh was like, is it a good way to do it? It's as good as any other.
Yeah,
certainly not a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
Next question. Do you want to steam in with this one, mate? As it's directed at you.
Well, it was a question that was like Josh specifically asked to me. So it was basically, no, I sound like a right arrogant woman when I say it. So please, like, you say it to me, because it sounds better coming from somebody else.
I'm going to change it now, make it seem even more arrogant than it was stated.
Thanks.
Now, basically, it was Josh was talking to Amy, and he was asking her how she feels about being an athletic-looking lady. That's essentially. I was like, lady, woman, I think. And that in itself is quite it's not a bizarre question, but like, we kind of both knew what he meant when he said it. It's that women that look athletic or that have got some kind of muscle tone, some people, like, if you're in the gym, you're likely to get congratulated about it or complimented. Whereas, because it's not the norm, just, sometimes people can pipe up with I'm going to say it like this. Sometimes people can pipe up with their opinions, and they might not necessarily be either wanted or, that unsolicited advice or opinion, basically.
So,
but yeah.
The strangest place I've been approached to be asked what I do for training, or was, I think Jack and I had been dating for about a month, and we went to Kings of Leon in Hyde Park. Really, really good. So amazing. Having a few drinks, really getting to know each other, having a lovely time. And this couple came over, and they must have been late 40s, early 50s. And the lady was like, "Are you a swimmer?" I was like, "Sorry? No." They were like, "You must be a swimmer." I was like, no, I'm not. Like, why?
It's because you had those goggles on.
That's what it was, and the swim hat.
Dead giveaway every time.
And they were like, we've just been talking about you over there, and like, because your physique, you must be a swimmer, because like your arms are just amazing. And like I do get I say complimented. My arms get commented on the most, and that's the first thing I think as an athletic woman, just to reference, is people think that they're a lot more free and able to comment on your body because you are athletic and because you are lean. And I definitely come from the place of, I mean, I say it to my friends sometimes, like, oh, your bum looks amazing, or your shoulders look great, or stuff like that. But, you know, like, they're my friends, or they're clients, or they're people I'm training, and I'm doing it from a coaching perspective. When you're lean, I say when you're leaner, or when you're athletic, or when you're a woman and you've got a certain amount of muscle tone, that does not give anybody free range to still comment on your body in terms of their opinion. No one should have an opinion on anybody else's body. That is theirs themselves. So that's the first thing that I'd like to say, because everybody does think that they're entitled to their opinion because I am athletic, and everyone does think that they're able to vocalize that because I think my figure and my muscles show a certain amount of health, or maybe give the impression that I'm healthy. I obviously engage in healthy behaviors. People think that that is okay to comment on. And most of the time it is genuinely positive, which is lovely. It's always nice to have compliments. Of course it is. Like I've said before on the podcast, though, I've never tried to look like this. I just enjoyed training. I enjoyed weight training, and I enjoyed resistance training. And I coupled that with a diet that was adequate enough for me to build muscle. And genetically, my upper body does respond a lot better than my lower body. So that has meant I've got, and I'm like you said the other day, we only train what we like training. I like training upper body. So as a consequence, I have lovely rounded shoulders. I have traps, and I have biceps and traps, because there was about a year where that was all I trained. So like, you know, but for every person that thinks that it's okay to comment on it, and I see people looking at me, and I see people speaking to friends about me, and I have been khaki jogger man in the gym that people are like, oh, look at that girl over there, she's really ripped. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm really ripped, that's, you know what I mean. So it's never nice to feel like you're being talked about. And for every person that comments from a lovely positive perspective, I've also had people say, you look disgusting, you look too muscly, oh, I want to get toned, but I don't want to look like you.
Oh, that's the absolute classic, isn't it?
Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like honestly, Andy, like, who do you think you are? So then I get my back up and I'm like, you couldn't even look like me if you tried, mate. Like, and then I get really defensive. But no, that hurts. It does. It really, really hurts. Because for every comment like that, I know how hard I've worked. Like I say, this happened by accident, but then there becomes a certain amount of, actually, I enjoy looking like this, and I work hard to stay looking like this. You know, I'm 33 now. Everything starts to go downhill from now on. Easy. Pretty much. Yeah, you know, you know all about that. You know, but like from now on, lean muscle mass does start being lost at a more rapid rate, and I do have to focus on my diet a little bit more. Training is a little bit more difficult, so it's actually, you know, it takes a little bit more effort to carry on looking like this, and I'm comfortable with my body now, and it's taken me 33 years to get to this place. So I think, and for every positive comment there's the negative one. And then also from a female perspective, like, I think a lot of people think that when they'll be slimmer, or when they'll be thinner or leaner or more toned, that they'll be happy. As a toned woman, I still have those moments in the changing room where I've got the top on, but I can't get it off again because my shoulders are so big for it. I've had to get my mum into changing rooms to rip me out of tops because, like, honestly, and I've had things like, okay, I've got it on, but I can't move because if I move, like, it's going to rip. Or I can fit in the size 8 top, but the sleeves are too tight. Like, it doesn't matter what you look like. Like, there are parts of the industry, whether it be the fashion industry, the diet industry, the weight loss industry, the fitness industry, that always want to make you feel shit about yourself. So like, I know we say it all the time, but don't think that getting to a certain stage where you're happy with your body still means that you're going to feel accepted in terms of the world, because there'll always be people that have their opinion, whether that's right or wrong. One thing I will say about the more toned woman with the more toned physique is it's widely a lot more accepted nowadays than it used to be. And anyone that is familiar with, say, CrossFit in particular, or the CrossFit Games, you see a lot more like larger. I mean, these women they're big, strong women, like larger women with really high level of muscle tone, doing incredible things with their body. So I think that's really good from a positive perspective. But yeah, it's interesting. Or like that, definitely always come back to that point of, just because someone looks fit and healthy, it doesn't mean that you can actually comment on the way that they look. That's absolutely none of your business. Absolutely none of your business. And I hope that doesn't sound like I'm coming from a very defensive place, but just like you wouldn't go up to someone and say, oh, you're really fat, or oh, you're really skinny. Sometimes maybe think about what happens when you go, oh, you've got really massive shoulders. Yeah, thanks. I have.
I'll take that. It's a compliment.
But it's a compliment, but also, like, there was a time where I was quite embarrassed about it, and I was like, oh God, please don't comment on them. Like, I don't like it, because maybe people don't think it's feminine, or maybe I didn't feel comfortable in a dress, because I would wear a dress and then I'd have these big muscle shoulders, and it was almost like a bit of an oxymoron. So you don't know how that person feels about being in their own skin. So it's just something to be aware of. So yeah, thank you, Josh, for that question. I think it's something that's really nice to talk about. Yeah. Do you have any opinions on that, Andy, from the more athletic women that you've known in your life?
I mean, I think this is what people really want to hear, my opinion on your body and your physique.
Picture me naked. Go on.
The classic. That's a reference to an earlier episode, by the way.
It is. It is.
It's not Amy being inappropriate. There's a few things that I kind of wanted to. I was deliberately being like, "Don't jump in here. Just let Amy go," because, yeah, like you could see like things like come into your head as you were talking, and there's so much around this, because like talking, you can speak like from experience, which is like a really powerful thing to do, because you've lived it right from like the minute one when you walked into a gym and your body started responding to it. And even it being like a bit of a surprise probably to yourself, like how quickly that you like put muscle mass on. The broader point of like people piping up with their opinions on other people's physiques, I think I really try and give people the benefit of the doubt as a whole. So whether it's like compliments generally come from a good place, but they might not be, it might be inappropriately timed, or just a bit odd if you don't know them. Someone just wanders up to you like at a gig or something like that. But maybe, they think they're saying, being nice or just being friendly or whatever. The negative comments, or people saying, oh, I want to train, but I don't want to get as big as you. I don't want to look like you. That's like the word that jumps out in my head is like insensitive. It's probably not even said with malice. It's just poor communication, insensitive, not really thinking through how that sounds to the person that you're saying it to. And in terms of everyone having an opinion, when you see someone, or not even someone, when you see something, person, post on Facebook, whatever it is, you will have an opinion or a thought or a feeling about it. Like, you can't help it. But what you can help is what comes out of your mouth next. So you could look at someone and be like, oh, he's a bit big, or oh, she's a bit skinny. If that's what you think, that's what you think. Like, you can't, unless you change your whole outlook on life, which might be a longer process, then fair enough. But you don't have to go and give your two pennies worth kind of thing, especially not to the person. It's just, I don't know. Like, that to me is almost like a form of being kind of like socially like socially immature is like the best way I can put it, I think.
Yeah, and especially like if we think about we're just about to go back to the gym and come out of lockdown, and some people's bodies might actually look dramatically different. Um, so, and some people might not be comfortable with that. So you know, you have to be aware of how your words do make people feel. And while, yeah, like you say, most of the conversation that's directed at my body or about my body is mostly positive. um Sometimes depending on what mood I'm in, I could be completely in love with my body or I could just be hating it. And you know, so it really does, whilst I can appreciate that most of it is complimentary, it's, yeah, depending on how it's received, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. You've just got to be very careful when you are thinking that it's okay to pass judgment on somebody's body. Yeah, I think that's enough to say with that one, really. But
Can I chip in one more?
you may.
Just off what you said first time round about it being like the norm now, or not as, it's not as crazy to see women lifting weights in the gym, and whether it's kind of on one end of it like the CrossFit Games, or even just, I would say like women's sport is in a better place now than it was even like 5 years ago. So you see, it becomes like normalized to see women doing or athletic endeavors or playing football or being physical and strong and powerful, and like those words like strong, physical, powerful are normally reserved for men.
Yeah,
And
but
women are,
that's,
yeah, women are like graceful or maybe
yeah,
athletic, but it's just a different set of language around how they're described.
yeah, and we're going to get a second win with this now. But that's really interesting because no one ever comes up to me and says, "Oh, you must be really strong." Like, they say, "Oh, your arms are massive," or like your arms, like I do, like your arms are amazing, or they're really toned, or something like that. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool," but no one sees it as a reflection of my athletic performance. They always see it as a aesthetic thing. And maybe that's because I might be in jeans or a t-shirt, or you know, I might be out of gym clothes. But then also it kind of works the other way. So if I am in gym clothes, like today, I've just been to the gym, I'm in a sleeveless tank top, people might look at me in the gym and think, oh, she's actually really strong. This ain't functional. Like, this just looks pretty. Like, I can't lift, like, my strength with regards to relative to my body weight isn't that much at all. So it's also not a reflection on someone's athletic performance. A lot of muscle mass and the way we build muscle mass is to do with genetics and to do with diet. So, you know, you can have the best will in the world and the most beautiful upper body, but my shoulder press might be absolutely cack, you know, like, so it's not necessarily a reflection on my athletic performance. But it would be lovely maybe for somebody one time to come up to me and go, you look really strong, like look at your arms. And it's really funny you say that about language, because I don't think, to my recollection, that anybody actually has. So it's interesting.
Yeah, like I never really got the it's something you learn, you constantly learn about, or hopefully you do, like the more people you interact with, you know, and every, hopefully if you say something that and we all do it, you know, you put your foot in it, you say something that is, you maybe offend someone, or maybe you use a poor choice of words, but hopefully if you're not a complete sociopath, you realize that, and then it's like, um I've said something there and it wasn't taken as I intended. So, you know,
Yeah.
apologize, learn, move on. But this is going back years now. So this was at uni, I think. So like early 2000s, around then. I did like it was like a women in sport module, or it was something like that. But basically the lecture was about how women are represented in the media. That was like the kind of thrust of it. And it was at a time when Wimbledon was on.
Mm.
And the lecturer basically brought in you know, a couple of like newspaper cuttings, and it was, you know, describing the men, and it was all those, you know, like powerful serve, physically dominant, you know, cardio was strong, all that kind of stuff, all about like kind of physical prowess. And then you looked at the women, and at the time, like Anna Kournikova was playing, who basically like she dominated the headlines, and it was all kind of, you know, like shots of her not like in full swing. It was like her lifting her skirt up, or her like, just like a headshot, kind of looking pretty, and just, stunning, like words like stunning or the beautiful, all those kind of things. And it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, the beautiful Roger Federer stepped on court. It's just, if you read that, you'd be like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
It's
Bizarre.
why is that being commented on? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, you take it for granted, unless you sit down with an article and you pick out the adjectives used, which is very like, you never do that. You don't read things like that. But when you do, you're like, oh, wow, women are described completely differently. There's
Yeah.
no reference to her speed or her endurance or her strength.
Yeah.
Or even her skills most of the time. It was like maybe a little, and the last bit would be like, oh yeah, and she won 2-1. And that was it.
And believe me, like any woman that's involved in any kind of physical activity to the point where they're fully in the moment. So Anna Kournikova, when she was playing tennis, or like any athlete in the Olympics, or any woman in the gym that actually cares about their performance, the last thing we are thinking about when I'm on that last rep of that last set, or trying to get that clean up from the floor, is how fucking beautiful I'm looking.
No
Like,
one's looking beautiful in that last rep.
no one is looking beautiful in that last rep. The facials is all I'm saying.
Turns into a gurning contest very quickly.
Oh, like I look. What did you say the other day? A turd with eyes. I literally look like a turd with eyes. Like, so honestly, like as women who participate in sport or anything kind of athletic pursuit, we don't give a shit about being beautiful while we're doing it. We really don't. The only reason I have makeup on today is for this podcast. Like,
and we all appreciate it, mate.
Thank you very much. So it's just bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre language. And like, we've spoke about language a lot, and language is something I'm quite particular about. But yeah, great question, Josh, and a lot of chat around that. It'd be interesting to hear like listener feedback about that, as to if that's anything anyone's encountered or had an issue with or thought about in the past.
I completely echo that. That would be great to get feedback on that, because I think it's not necessarily something that is spoken about widely, and it's quite hard to speak about as well if it's your, like, friend or family member that said something. Like, it's not like it's some randomer coming up off the street. If someone close to you is kind of making comments like that and you feel a bit uncomfortable, or you're like, oh, can you stop? Kind of, I don't know. It's just, it can be a hard one to talk about. So if anyone wants to chip in, that'd be great. And thank you, Josh, for that. I mean, if these are the kind of quality questions that we're getting after 5 pints, imagine we get you sober. It's going to be a different level.
Or maybe we should give him more pints next time.
Oh my God, you've hit the jackpot. 10 pints in. Who knows what gold we're going to get? Right, moving on. So the next one, so this is a topic we both wanted to talk about, which is motivation to train specifically. And actually, we had another question based around this from Bernie. Bernie is an absolute legend. And she's given us a ton to work on, which we're going to do over the coming weeks. But her question specifically this time round was motivation for older clients or parents, but mostly patients. Oh, Bernie's a doctor, by the way. I should probably point that out. Otherwise, this is going to seem very odd.
No pressure.
Yeah, I have 5 to 10 minutes conversation with them about their fitness and health. But I get a lot of, well, I've always been big, or I only eat salads. The denial aspect of health. And obviously, I'm sure Amy does as well. I completely empathize with this position, because I think I said this to Bernie, like, if I do like a typical consultation, that's going to be an hour. And there's a good chance that I'll have spoken to that person on the phone before that as well. So that might be another maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just getting a bit of a feel for where they're at. Well, if you're a doctor, you've got, 5 or 10 minutes. And if you know that physical activity, exercise, anything, like, the benefits of it, obviously doctors are aware of the benefits of it. We're aware of the benefits of it. But how you get that across to the individual sat in front of you in 5 to 10 minutes is, I don't think there is a way, like a set, like, this is the way you should do it. Because if there was, everyone would be doing it. And when that individual walks in, you're trying to, you're listening to them, you're trying to kind of glean what you can, and what's best for them, or what you want them to do. But how you get that across is, it's difficult, right? It's difficult.
Yeah. I think for us, it's probably easier than for someone like Bernie, to be honest, because when people approach us, that's exactly it. They've approached us. So I've spoken about the change curve before in terms of like readiness to change and take action. So if someone's come to us as a health professional, it's because they genuinely are thinking or going through that process of wanting to make their life better. Whereas in Bernie's position as a doctor, sometimes they could come to the doctor with obviously other health issues that, like in a doctor's position, they obviously know there are going to be massive benefits of improving their life through exercise and diet, in terms of actually massively improving their life.
Yeah.
And they're probably the issue that they come to the doctors for. But that can be a really, really hard thing to try. Well, in fact, almost impossible to try and get across in 5 to 10 minutes if someone is literally not ready to hear it, or B, in the very much the mindset of give me a pill, let me solve the problem.
This is it, right? So
Yeah.
if going to the doctors is, if you've ended up in Bernie's office or a doctor's office, the chances are that if you're there because of something lifestyle related, it's been something that's going on for years, and it's manifested itself in type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, yada, yada, yada. And now it's like, right, I'm here for the medication or whatever. And obviously the doctors want to help. They've got the different drugs or different treatments at their disposal, so they're kind of looking after your health. But it's going to be remiss of them to just give you the drugs and then be like, yep, cool, off you go, because they know that unless you want to be taking drugs indefinitely, you have to change your lifestyle. If it's lifestyle induced, like some diseases and conditions, it's just kind of luck of the draw. We don't know how to explain them, but a lot of this stuff we do.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is tightly correlated with poor lifestyle, health and lifestyle choices. So this is like so drugs would be like an acute solution. It's that moment in time you've got to a point where the drug's going to really help, and it's important that you take them. But chronically, over a long period of time, it's alterations to the lifestyle that's going to keep you out of Bernie's office and out of the doctors in general.
That's just a bitter pill to swallow for some people, because
Boom,
that's a lot of,
like that.
but do you like that?
Like
See what I did there? That's just a lot of hard work, and it takes effort. And it's not a quick fix. You're not going to wake up in the morning and suddenly not have type 2 diabetes anymore. Well, you will eventually, but it'll take a lot of hard work to get to that point, So yeah, it's hard. And that, like, I think that probably links in nicely to the motivation question, and like, where does motivation to train, was it to train, or just to just have a healthy lifestyle come from? It was mainly to train, wasn't it?
I think we put on the notes to train, but I would say let's use it as a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So in terms of, if we're looking at more exercise, like training, when I think training, I think in the gym.
Yeah.
But when I think exercise, I think sports teams. And when I think lifestyle, I think steps and just walking and being generally active, doing some gardening, that kind of stuff. So it's all these things about being more physically active, I would say, is the way to think of it.
Yeah. Shall I speak personally, and then like you say from your experience in terms of motivation?
Well, linking into Bernie's question about, so she's basically saying, like, how do you motivate older clients or patients? And like you said, I think you have to look at where they're coming from. So like for us, if you get someone who's come, I mean, Bernie might get this as well, where you get someone turns up at your door and they're like, I'm ready. I want to do something. I'm not happy with where I'm at. Or in Bernie's case, maybe it's, oh my God, I've had this scare. I need to change my life around. And to work with those clients, it's, all you're doing then is you're right. They want to change. It's a case of like setting them up the best you can, giving them some easy things to follow so they can just kind of off they go and get rolling. But if you get someone coming in, so in Bernie's case, it might just be like someone who's like turned up at her office and she's trying to convince them. In our case, it might be, do you ever have clients that have been like referred by a friend, or maybe a spouse has come in? So they're not necessarily there because they were the ones who made that initial contact.
And you have to persuade a little bit of sales, and a salesman comes in
So
there.
you have to, whether you're selling your service or yourself, or in our case, a bit of both, there might be some convincing that needs to be done. And so let's go, you've got motivated people that are ready to change and they've got to a point. Then there's another group on the other end of the spectrum where it does not matter what you say or how good you are as a coach or how much you say you try and extol the virtues of a healthy lifestyle, it's going to fall on deaf ears. You still have to try, but you kind of know I'm not going to reach them. And if they haven't reached it by the point where it's affecting their health and they've ended up in a hospital, it's really tough. Yeah. So then the question is, there's the group in the middle, or maybe the people that haven't done anything yet. Why haven't they done anything yet? What is stopping them from taking on these changes? And I think that's where we start off. So why don't people? What are some of the reasons why people don't take their health more seriously?
To try and answer that, and it almost comes into how I would approach it with a client as well. Because they think they have to be perfect, or because the diet and fitness industry pitches itself as a perfect industry. So you have to hit your 10,000 steps a day. You have to eat within your calorie ranges every single day, perfect bodies, take, quick fixes, because there's always this quest for perfectionism. So I think anybody that's worried or got anxiety about making those changes thinks, oh, well, I'm never going to get there. So what's the point? So what is the point? I mean, we've both had clients before where, 10,000 steps is great if you can do 10,000 steps a day. If I've got a client coming to me and they only active every single day, they barely do more than 2,000 steps, I'm not going to tell them to, right, okay, every day now I want you to do 10,000 steps. That is too much. They're already going to feel like they're failed. I think as a coach, we're very aware. I think very aware of meeting a client where they're at. And we always talk about going for that low hanging fruit. So what is looking at doing a proper consultation with someone, looking at the lifestyle, the training or the exercise or the diet as a whole. And I think we talked about this on What Should Come First, the diet or the exercise podcast. What is the one little key change that I could ask this client to implement that I know they are easily capable of doing? And then you literally sing their praises. That is a massive win. We really need to increase that motivation. So we just shower them with praise after that. And then the motivation starts to come, because it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. I didn't think I could, but I can do it. And it's the gratification of, oh, okay, I've done it. What comes next? Maybe I can achieve this. What can I do next? And then it's that whole snowball effect. We've said it before on previous podcasts. If you're looking at if you've got to a stage where you have a health related disease because of long-term either bad nutrition, bad lifestyle practices, or not exercising, you are not going to go to bed one night, wake up and be able to change all those three all at once. And it by making that goal too big in its entirety, but why would someone be motivated? That's not achievable in a day. So why would someone be motivated to do that? Because they already know they're probably going to fail. So it's setting a client up for success. And I think that's where we come in as coaches, to get a really good relationship with an individual, to know what that looks like for that person and how to keep them going on that journey.
Yeah, and that's a luxury that we have, and when we work with people over weeks or months, you get to know someone a little bit better, and you can start tailoring programs or tailoring the diet, or maybe you're just acting as like like an accountability or a level of accountability for them. I think another issue, and Bernie kind of touches on this with the mindset of, well, I've always been big. When someone's like, well, my mum was big, I'm big, it runs in the family, type 2 diabetes runs in the family, this runs in the family. And don't get me wrong, there is a genetic component, obviously, to a lot of this stuff. But also what you have to think about, if you're a little bit too ready to accept the genetics card, if you like, then you also have to accept the fact that you grew up in the same environment as your siblings, as your parents, and you don't know, if you've just accepted that that is the way it is, you haven't really explored how much the environment plays a part in where you're at. And I think the, well, I've always been big line, or, well, it's just we're all big boned or whatever, that is just a lack of, it's almost like a lack of belief that they're like, it's almost like fitness isn't for me, being slimmer or whatever isn't for me, because when people don't see it around them, there's no evidence to suggest it should be. And for, like, if I only had 10 minutes with someone, maybe instead of like, and I wouldn't do this anyway, but instead of talking about like macros or calorie splits and all that kind of stuff, my shift would just be trying to get across to them, no, you can do this. And not as like a little kind of rah coach, you can do it, believe in yourself. It's like, no, there's a process to it, but there's no reason physically why you can't put yourself in a better position when I see you 6 months from now, for example. Like, you have got the control, and do you know what? Here's a couple of resources that you can use for support, and maybe you get, you go down the route of getting a coach, but physically you can do this. And we're not, like you said about the perfectionism syndrome, we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking to avoid some pretty horrendous illnesses and disease states, and that can be done. Like, we can't predict the future, but God, if you don't walk currently and you start walking, or if you don't exercise and you join a club, your health outcomes will improve, irrespective of what you do with the diet. Almost like, if you start moving and you're not moving currently, your health outcomes will improve.
Yeah.
The question isn't if they will, it's by how much. And if you haven't been doing anything up until that point, and your diet's your lifestyle's a car crash, you don't need to move to perfect. You can just move to like neutral, and you're gonna have a better time.
Yeah. And like I've said it before, it was on podcast bingo, I'm sure, but like, what do you want? What is the person, or what does the person you want to be in a year's time look like? What behaviors do they engage in? So, it's like that flipping of the switch. It's like, what does your life look like in a year from now, or what would you like it to look like? Okay, well, what are some changes that you can go away with and implement right now to get you one step closer to that goal? If that is just getting up off the sofa after dinner and going for a 10-minute walk, and that is all you can commit to, do that. Okay. And then it starts, and then you engage in that behavior, and then it starts to snowball, and then you just step by step get closer to that one person that you want to be. And it's keeping that in mind. I mean, I said quite harshly before we start recording this podcast, like, oh, I've always been big. My family have always been big. I made a decision that is not going to be who I was. So I could still be a big boned individual because of the Ramsheads, we are a big boned family. But I chose not to be. So if you're sitting there saying, oh, we've always been big, our family have a history of type 2 diabetes. Yeah, they might do, but there comes a point where you have made that choice to put all that food in your mouth to actually get you to a point of type 2 diabetes. And I'm sorry if that sounds really harsh, but we have ultimate control of the lives that we build ourselves. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying every single one of us healthy, in wanky air quotes, individuals has the motivation to train all the time, but the person we associate ourselves with is a health-seeking person, and that looks different for every single one of us. So if to you that just looks like getting out of the house for a 10-minute walk, then that's awesome. And that should still be celebrated just as much as those people who eat a wide variety of fruit and vegetables and drink 3 liters of water a day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this right beforehand, because when we were looking at, reasons why, talking about that scenario, you have someone in for consultation, it's like, right, okay, reasons why they might not be in a place to do so. And, perfectionism, like you said, that's striving for something that they're never going to achieve. That's definitely one. I genuinely think like a lack of belief is right up there. And you mentioned the fact, you said, look, some people just make excuses, and you also caveated that with, does that sound harsh? And it can do, but the problem is, this isn't like a blanket statement for everyone, but there's going to be a subset of people that do make excuses, and you have to, and it might even be a combination of all three. So if you look at something like someone coming in and saying, well, I've always been big, well, that could be two things. That could be an excuse, because it is, but it could also be something they 100% believe.
Yeah.
Then it almost becomes like, well, it doesn't matter if that's the excuse. Like, if they believe it wholeheartedly, you better have something kind of up your sleeve to counter that, or to kind of lead them away from that, or at least challenge it. And how far you go down the, the carrot and the stick approach is difficult,
Yeah.
because we've all got our own styles with that, and like how, sometimes people need that like verbal slap around the face, which can sound like you have it in isolation. Like, you can say something like quite harsh and quite strong, but if you're there, it's not like you're tweeting them and then you're going to leave it. You could say it to their face, and then you could caveat, and then you can kind of come back in with, look, I'm not saying this is easy, but like, you have to think about, what you're saying, and are you just saying this thing because you've always said it, and it's just become like this ingrained belief of where you're at, when actually, I'm sorry, but that sounds like a little bit of an excuse. I can help you with it, but that's still an excuse.
You have to, it's very hard with excuses to know where they're coming from, because sometimes excuses come from a place of genuine belief, sometimes excuses come from a place of fear. And making a change, particularly one regarding your health, that isn't necessarily comfortable all the time, that can be a really, really, really scary thing. So again, it's knowing when to use the carrot, it's knowing when to use the stick, it's knowing when to support someone, it's knowing when to hang up a banner saying intervention. Like, it's hard, it is really, really hard. But I just think, with regards to keeping someone motivated or trying to get someone motivated, think about playing the long game in terms of, what do you want your life to look like in 3, 6, 9, 12 months time, and start making movements towards being that person. And just go for the low hanging fruit, because motivation's a really, really amazing thing, in that once you start on the roller coaster, it kind of keeps going. So, the easy wins can soon turn into massive lifestyle changes that people want to do and want to adhere to and keep going for long periods of time.
Okay, Rambo, here's one for you.
Oh God.
What about those people that are in a little bit of denial? So we've got people that don't believe, we've got people who've got excuses, we've got people that maybe aren't ready to change and have got no interest. But what about the people that think they're doing all the right things? So, I'm active, I'm on my feet all day, I only eat a couple of salads, I don't have that much, I'm pretty good. No, 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 no. You know what I mean? Like, you can almost hear it. I do this, I'm all right. I don't know why I'm so big. I don't know why I've got type 2 diabetes. I'm pretty good. When actually they're not. How do you deal with that? How'd you deal with that one?
I like to set people like that a little challenge. I'm like, little experiments. Okay, like, okay, yeah, of course. I believe you. All right, if you're telling me that, I believe you. Rule 101 of nutrition coaching, by the way, people lie.
Believe nothing.
Yeah, people lie. All right, sure. If that's what you're telling me. Okay, well, all right. Well, I'm going to set you a little task for the next week. Track your steps for me. Do you think you can do that? Awesome. All right. Take a photo of every single meal you eat and send it to me. And like, again, it's just trying to build a picture and build awareness with that person. It's
I've
the,
got
the thing that springs to mind is the classic of when you're cooking dinner and like you're having snacks while you're cooking. Have you ever seen that TV program, Secret Eaters?
but of course I have.
Of course you have.
Of course I have. I love it.
Like, do you remember there was one where this woman was cooking a roast dinner for like her whole family, and she'd like chop up everything, and while she was chopping up, she was like munching, tasting, and I think they tried to tot up how many calories, which again, not saying I agree with the premise of this program, that they tried to tot up how many calories that she was having while she was cooking the roast dinner. And I think she ate something like 600-700 extra calories or something while she's eating, and then sits down while she's cooking and then sits down to eat the meal. So again, it's little things like that. Like I try and make them prove it to me. Because if people are so quick like that to prove to you or like say that they're active, okay, let's say, like, I'm going to support you. If that's what you're telling me, let's do an experiment, prove it to me, because there's obviously something going wrong here and I want to help you.
Follow-up question.
Oh God.
So sorry, mate, I'm really putting you
It's
on
all
the
right.
spot here.
I'm loving it. I'm not on the edge of my
So
seat.
when you do that, because I know what the answer is for me, when you set the challenge of, I want you to say like track food or take photos of your meals or do steps, all that stuff, how many of them, honestly, do it for completely without missing a day, without missing a meal? How many of them do that for a week, 2 weeks?
I'd say 1 week. Yeah. More than that. Nah, not interested. Like,
Okay, so I would say in my experience, so I have a little challenge that I give to people as well, and it's around. I do use steps and stuff, but around food specifically, if it's like a weight loss goal, and they think they're like Bernie says, only eating salads. Actually, Bernie says only
with
eating
Caesar
salad,
dressing, though, probably.
only eating salads. Lol, because she knows where we're going with this. I say to people, do you know what? If you could track on FitnessPal, if they're up for it, if you could track on FitnessPal for 1 to 2 weeks, everything you eat, honestly, if you do that for me, then, after 2 weeks, if you've hated doing it, you never have to do it again. And I also say to them now, something I've added in because of this, I say, do you know what? When I ask people to do this, barely anyone does it. Barely anyone completes this and actually does like 2 full weeks.
Yeah.
So I tell them at the start, and I would say, if I had to put a percentage on how many people genuinely do the whole 2 weeks without missing a day, I mean, it's less than 5%.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, it's probably like 2% of people. Like the last 100 people that have asked to do that, there's probably been, I mean, I can only think of one off the top of my head. Let's put it that way.
Why do you think that is, though? Do you think that's because they realize and they're like, I don't want to see this anymore because I was obviously wrong, and they don't want that?
That's actually a result, though, because
Yeah.
because ultimately what you're trying to show them is, see, you
Yeah.
were having more than you thought. So that might
Yeah.
take. Yeah, I suppose that's a good point to bring up. If someone realizes after a week, bloody hell, I'm all over. I'm eating way more than I realized. Well, that's good. That's the whole point you're trying to prove. So I think some people, they don't need as long. So once they realize it, they're like, shit, I need to get on top of this. Other people, I think there's a massive shame and embarrassment portion of this, because people people normally want to please. And if they, to me, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Right. So I don't, it'll be like mildly annoying if someone doesn't send me like their numbers, but I'm not going to like start having a go at people because life gets in the way. But this is what you're trying to show people. It's like, look, to actually track your food consistently over 2 weeks on FitnessPal, it's quite difficult if you're not used to using it. So then you're saying to them, look, you don't have to do this. I'm just using this to like hammer home a point that you're eating more. We need to find a way now of one. Now we know that you are eating more, hopefully, if they've done it. So now how do we get you eating less without having to count every last gram that is going into your mouth? So do we start focusing on like food quality, or eating so many times a day, or skipping breakfast, or fasting, or you provide some other kind of structure, and hopefully that helps them out. But the denial aspect of it, the best thing you can do when someone is in denial is get them to prove it to themselves that they're wrong. Because I could say to them, no, you're eating more, and they're like, you don't know me. You're not around the kitchen when I'm cooking my food. I'm doing everything right. So you have to say, okay, well, this is a mystery then. Let's start. And I've got clients, and I've got good clients, and people that are smart, and this isn't an intelligent, people aren't idiots. It's just, we all do this to a certain extent. We're all in a little bit of denial. And the moment that you start getting like granular with it and actually like working out every last gram, it becomes very apparent very quickly that you're probably overeating.
Yeah, massively. I did it with Jack once. Have I told you that?
Don't think so.
No. He tried to convince me that he was eating enough protein, and I was like, okay, get MyFitnessPal out. Put everything in there that you've eaten today. Not even 60 grams, Andy. Not even 60 grams.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, and then he was like, oh. I was like, yeah.
It's honestly, it's like we all do it. So it's like the secret. I've probably spoken about secret eaters because it's one of my favorite. It's funny you bring it up because it's one of my one of my favorite references, because secret eaters is an extreme case. Obviously, it's why it makes great TV. It's like the guy, calling back to the kebabbery on his way back from work, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot I did that." Or like the woman making the roast, she's doing like shots of olive oil in between courses. It's like, yeah, there's some additional calories creeping in here. But we're all sneaking in like a few hundred here, a few hundred there. Oh, I didn't count the drinks. Oh, those kind of things.
Massively. But yeah, I think that original conversation was about motivation, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
We've completely gone. I think one overarching point of that, and linking it into Bernie's question again, and just that motivation in general, you can't force someone to be motivated to want to change. Like, you can talk about it from a health point of view, you can encourage, you can try and provide accountability, you can try and provide education, you can give people structure, you can write diet plans, you can do it all. But the reason why when someone makes a change it feels amazing is because they know, even with all the help, they've had to make the change. They're the ones that have had to do it. We're the support cast, really. Like the doctors, the trainers, the coaches. We're the kind of net that's there, and or the person that's catching you. And if you're seeing a doctor, you've fallen a bit further. But it's amazing to watch a client make the change and succeed, because when they're like, "Oh, thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you," and I'm like, "You've done it yourself. Like, I have not done this. I cannot walk. I cannot make the choices for you. You're the one who's doing it." And when you point that out to them, it's like, boom, mind blown. Oh my God.
And I was about to say exactly the same thing. I got some client pictures this week, and I was like, they were like, "Thank you so much. You've really helped me." And I was like, I've done nothing. I haven't put that food in your mouth. I haven't built a structure for your day. You've done that yourself. All I've done is taken you down a path that you've chosen to go down. At any point, you could have got off the treadmill because you didn't want to get off, like, that's a metaphor, by the way. You could have, but you didn't. You chose to go on that path. You've done all the hard work. You've put the effort in, and you've got the results. Like, I'm just a tool.
Unfortunately, it works both ways. So when people don't do stuff as well, it's on them. And as much as this is where like the excuse part of it comes in, like everyone makes mistakes and has tough times and will go through periods where they maybe regress. And as long as you can kind of accept that as a human, you'll be fine. And then it's like, right, pick myself up, go again. But again, it is on you. Like, I'll give you, me, Amy, other coaches, Bernie, like, we'll give you all the support in the world. But unfortunately, it is on. So it's good and it's bad. When it's going great, it's the best thing in the world. When it's going badly, don't reach for excuses as like your default. Just be like, this comes down to one of like my kind of like core tenets, which is like honesty, and like being honest. And that doesn't mean just being honest with other people, it means being honest with yourself. So if you've got yourself in a position, part of it is just admitting it, because once you've admitted it and you're like, right, I've kind of let myself go here, I haven't been paying attention to my health, then once you've admitted that, it becomes a hell of a lot easier then to kind of take a step forward, because you're like, right, that is gone, that is done. What am I going to do now? What am I going to do for the next meal? What am I going to do for the next week? What am I doing when the gym's open again? And that's quite liberating when you start looking forward and not looking at, oh, I should have, would have, could have. Once you abandon that, start focusing on what you're doing moving forward, then yeah, things generally pick up, and things, you know, you start looking at things in a positive light and thinking about what you can do, not what you should have done or could have done.
That's very true. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's a lovely note to end it on.
Nice one, mate. Enjoyed that.
That was very good. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for your questions. So thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Drunken Josh. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, if anyone does have any feedback or follow-up questions or as a result of those things we mentioned, as always, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, only echo that. Questions always welcomed. And when they give us kind of somewhere to go like that, even better. But any feedback, as always, send it our way.
Yes.
Right. And on that note, it has been a pleasure.
As always.
And I'll see you next week, mate.
Yeah, maybe we could go to like a gym and like, you know, train at some point with other people. Be amazing.
Steady on, mate. Steady on.
I know. Easy. Have a good week. Chat to you next week, bud.
Cool. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Not Another Fitness podcast. If you liked what we do, please subscribe and share. Tell all your friends. And if you want to follow us over on our socials, you'll find me and my contact details over on Instagram at The Flying Food Coach. And you'll find Andy
over at Facebook at the Facebook group Eat, Move, Lift, Enjoy, or feel free to drop me an email on info@andrewjohnscraggs.com. Thanks again for listening. Until next time. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. That's good.
That'll do. I'll put that on there as well. That'll do.